Sorry, Andrew. As you can tell, I'm a local lad, but I live about 3,000 miles northwest in a place called Kent, just east of London. Actually, my story's, well, no, it's not a story, it's a journey. And it's more to do with complacency of all levels of my organisation, from myself, my shift mates, the other guys on the other shifts, and my management. To start off with, this is my duty of care. I'm going to talk about real life. And if it's going to bring some upsetting memories back for yourselves, you may leave. I will not feel offended. But I would love you to stay. I'd love you to stay and listen to the journey that I've had over the last 15 years. So if you are happy to stay, great, I will begin. I'm going to start off with, wherever it's gone, sorry. There was supposed to be a quote from Ronald Reagan, who says, "We can't help everybody, but everybody can help someone." That is you. You will go away today and you will help someone. Whether it's you've listened to me, you're going to listen to Tony later, or who spoke this morning. I did a little bit of research about the price of oil over the years. $50 seems to be around about an average over the 40-odd, well, 50, 60 years that I've looked into. It's been as low as $10 at one point. It's been as high as 147 apparently. But really, as a consumer of oil, I'm quite happy with $50 at the moment because I'm paying £1 a litre for my petrol. So for me, I hope it falls because it'd be cheaper for me to run my car. But for yourselves, who produce it and sell it, you want it higher. So who do you want to please? Yourselves or the customer? So, do you feel lucky or unlucky? Looking at some faces, you look a bit unlucky, and some of you look like you look really happy or lucky. Because do you know what? Those who win the lottery, it's always someone else, isn't it? They didn't think they were going to win the lottery. It's a bit like accidents. It's never going to happen to us. It's always going to happen to someone else. So what I did this morning, while it was nice and quiet, I stuck some dirhams underneath the tissue boxes. So one of you may be, well, the table may be lucky. You might be unlucky. So by all means, have a look underneath your tissue box. Look, someone's eager. By all means, have a look. I think someone's found it. Is it always you, sir, that wins the lottery? Is it always you? Enjoy you. But it's always someone else, isn't it? It's never us. So what is complacency? Basically, it's this. It's a loss of fear of following the rules. I would class myself as a number because I was an employee for a huge multinational company. I'm from the paper industry. But we always used to joke that we was a number. Luckily now, I'm a name. But for us on the shop floor, we're known as numbers. So us numbers will get the job done the best way we can. So in the end, you lose the fear. So what does complacency look like? It looks like this. This is Adam Farisi, the Reading goalkeeper, trying to scramble the ball back over the line. I was watching the Cup semi-final in April this year, and Reading was playing the Arsenal, and I was getting a little bit jittery because Adam Farisi was having the game of his life. He was man of the match. And being an Arsenal supporter, I started to realise that I could be getting some text messages from all my mates telling me how great the Arsenal was playing, not. And then all of a sudden, Adam Farisi did this. He had that momentary lapse. He failed to follow the rules. He let the ball through his legs. And now he will be remembered evermore for that. He won't be remembered for being the great goalkeeper of the day. He will be remembered for that. So how do you want your employees to be remembered? Do you want them to be remembered as being the good, solid employees that produce the goods you want? Or are they going to be remembered like Adam? That momentary lapse that ruins everything. The choice is yours. Talking about the Arsenal, my greatest manager at the moment. Actually, this quote from Arsene, he's about 13 years old. He said it in 2002 when the Arsenal won the league and cup double. Alex Ferguson was moaning, like he normally does, about him having the best team. So Arsene turned around and said, everybody thinks they've got the prettiest wife at home. So what's this got to do with safety and off the balance sheet? Your employees think they work in the safest company, or the safest shift, or the safest platform, and you believe that. You believe that you have the safest organisation. 15 years ago, I thought I worked on the safest shift, in the safest plant, and the safest industry. And then one morning, at 8:15 in the morning, that happened. So how does someone go to work, start their shift at 7 o'clock in the morning, and an hour and a quarter later, end up laying on the floor with his friend beside him, with his fist up his armpit, or should I say up my armpit, and my arm, I don't know whether I'm going to get back again. Well, we made a documentary. It appeared on the 999, and it happened something like this.
Started her up and cut the bells, went in, and within seconds had the scream of the motors going, so we knew we had a blockage.
Oh, got a blockage on the screw.
John radioed up to the control room to say, look, we've got a blockage, and could they lock it off for us? It's remotely controlled. Got the all clear, started to dig out all the pulp.
There was a breakdown in communication between Paul's workmate and the control room. What happened next had disastrous consequences.
Before I knew it, it had started up. Felt my arm break. So initial reaction, oh, I'll break my arm, oh great, you know, that's all I need. And then realising that my arm wasn't there at all. I felt really in shock, you know, more than pain. My brain just did not have time to sort of like say, that hurts. I'd realised I'd gone through an artery, and I knew it was a matter of life and death.
With the severed artery, Paul was in danger of bleeding.
I've cut it there, but you're more than welcome to go to YouTube, look for my name, and you will get a longer version. As I said, I laid on the floor for about an hour and a half with my friend fist up my armpit. I bared my soul to him because I thought my day had come. My last view of life was going to be the paper mill. It wasn't going to be with my family. Would you like to get up and do the funky chicken? I was then flown to East Grinstead, where on my way to it, they shut down Gatwick, literally to fly me into the hospital quicker. I then spent another hour on the assessment table, being treated like a pincushion, being bombarded with 101 questions, and having my clothes cut off me. And one of the questions sticks in my head today like it was yesterday. Mr. Davison, who was the senior registrar at the hospital, came out of the melee and he said, "Morning, Paul." And like you do, you say, "Morning" back. He said, "I've got a question for you. Would you like your arm back?" What would you say? Pretty obvious. I said no. Because one, I didn't think I could get it back. And two, I was getting used to being an amputee. I'd laid there for 2.5 hours thinking, I'm 27, I'm going to be an amputee. Life has changed. Mr. Davison asked me again, "Do you want your arm back?" This time I was getting tired, and I just said, "Do whatever you have to." He went off with a roll smile on his little face because he knew that I just consented to that operation. Before I knew it, I was being wheeled down to theatre where they started the operation Saturday morning at 11 o'clock. By 4 o'clock Sunday morning, I was reunited with my arm. And I had a very proud surgeon, Mr. Teo, or as those who know him on a friendly basis, TC. Because he had just made medical history. He had become the first surgeon in the UK to put an arm on above the elbow successfully. So you can imagine what his CV looked like. I also carry that badge of honour. But I carry it for the wrong reasons, because I am it. I am the first person, and touch wood, the only person in the UK to ever have their arm put on above the elbow successfully. It's not a badge of honour that I particularly like to know that I'm a world first, or so I say country first. For a long time, I was asked, why did I do what I did? And for a very long time, I just said, that's what was expected of us. And people would go away muttering to themselves, how the hell could you stick your arm in a screw? And then one day, I was watching a documentary about Piper Alpha. And they started to talk about Jeff Bolam, the guy who was in the control room the night that rig went up. And he said something like this: I didn't go to work thinking I was particularly unsafe. It was an environment I soon got used to. And all of a sudden, I had that light bulb moment. He's talking about me. Actually, he's probably talking about a lot of people. But for that moment then, he was talking about me. I felt safe. I had been used to 9 years of sticking my arm down pipe work, like we all had. So that was second nature. The most dangerous part of that piece of kit was the macerating screws where the bales went in. I got used to the environment. As an 18-year-old going to see a paper machine for the very first time, I had butterflies, thinking, really? Have I got to work on that? Okay, I'll give you a G. It's not as big as an oil platform. But for me, it was huge. But within a couple of months, I was doing what everybody else was doing, climbing on stuff and crawling into the smallest of gaps. This is what your guys and girls have got done in the past. They feel safe. They've got used to the environment. Actually, you're the same. You've got used to your environment. You feel safe because you believe that you have a safe group of employees. Earlier this year, I was on the Shell Retail Roadshow. I was asked to talk to all the retailers. And something they kept talking about was chronic uneasiness. Basically, butterflies. Please, ladies and gents, get the butterflies back. They are your early warning system. They keep you on your toes. They keep you aware. Alexander the Great, probably the world's greatest military commander, and he said this about 2,500 years ago. Remember, the conduct of each depends on the fate of all. What you put in place today will have an effect on all of you. Might be tomorrow, might be next week. It could be years down the line. The same as what happened to me. Before that piece of kit was installed, I raised a question with one of the engineering managers. Why are we installing a screw? Why aren't we installing a flatbed conveyor like we've always done? And I got politely told, Paul, it's been installed and you're going to have to get on with it. The seed had been planted. You're going to have to get on with it. So we all did. We all got on with it. Which leads on to this. He had ignored a criticism. So what is being ignored with your guys and girls? And they're not doing it intentionally. They could just be walking past something. Kevin highlighted it earlier. The guy had sprayed a button with a bit of WD-40. Really, he was ignoring the issue, but so was everybody else. What solutions are you applying? What solutions are your guys and girls supplying? For us, our solution to that particular problem was to get the shift walkabout to go into the switchgear room. We would then communicate via walkie-talkie while two of us was downstairs clearing it out. But we just didn't use the best tools in the world. We used an arm bar because that broke the pulp up, so we could use our hands. This arm bar was kept round by one of the girders. And now when I go round organisations, guess what I look for round girders? The handmade tools. They are there. They are your guys and girls' solution to a lot of problems. And I tell you what, they come out at night work more often or not. They're a little bit like vampires. They only come out at night. What communication are you having? And it doesn't have to be verbal, it can be non-verbal. We had one manager in particular who used to do this. What does that mean? Colin, you must know. I don't bite. 2 syllables. This ain't give me a clue, Pete. It means to someone on the shop floor, get a move on. How long you been? It's called tacit engagement. You've only got to do it the once, and it sticks. Other communication, we had a logbook where we used to write everything down in the logbook. When the HSE came in and they was looking through all the logbooks, they had found there was about 60 blockages over a year. We was reporting it, we was communicating it, but it wasn't being looked at. It was being missed. So what communications are you missing? Or what communications are you giving? What leadership is happening? We had none. We had no leadership. We was left to our own devices. We should have spoke up. We should have been like Kevin had said earlier this morning, the guys at the back looking up. But it's a two-way street. We had engineering managers who would come down and help us dig out. So they knew what we was doing. What's been evolved? Our site was 80 years old. We had lots of different generations working together. And as a newbie, you come in and you ask the questions. So if those who have got little toddlers will know this at the moment, they keep asking you why, and you just fob them off. So we used to ask the question, so why do we do this? What happens if that happens? We've always done it like this. So what are you evolving? What are you evolved? You need to look at stuff with a fresh set of eyes. I think Andrew put it lovely this morning. You've got to take a look from the outside. You've got to take a step back. Do you know what? The best thing to do would probably take your kids round with you. But I know health and safety would say no. Your kids would point out different stuff. So you've got to go back to your childhood and start asking the questions of why. Why do we do that? Take a step outside. Because, do you know what? When the proverbial hits the fan, you get comments from chairmen like this. Sir Richard Broadbent was the chairman of Tesco's. And those from the UK will know that somehow Tesco's mislaid £250 million. And obviously the media got hold of it and run with it like they do. And they asked Richard for a quote or an interview. And halfway through his interview, he said this: "Things are always unnoticed till they've been noticed. Basically, we keep putting it under the carpet." And then all of a sudden it flares up and everything gets noted. Everything gets pointed at. Everybody starts laying fingers at other people's doors. What are you missing? It's not the big stuff that we miss, it's the little things in life. Just like Kevin said this morning with the button, that's something small, something forgettable. But do you know what? That could have a huge impact. Life. Life is a roller coaster for all of us. But those who have been involved in a major injury or incident, the highs get higher and the lows get lower. Because you have to start dealing with life. For me, it started with the nightmares. I had two in particular in hospital, and I can still remember them to this day about what happened on that day. But also, I had the ones where I was awake, especially the day they started to take my stitches out. I had two sessions of stitches being taken out about a week apart. And the first time this little Filipino nurse came over to me with a big smile on her face, and she said, "Mr. Paul, we've got to take your stitches out today." I was thinking, brilliant. And she started to get everything prepped, and all of a sudden she turned round and she's doing this with a pair of scissors. And I said to her, "Do you mind if I lay down? I think I'm going to faint." I hate moving blades. I don't know why, but I just hate moving blades. So that was a couple of nightmares that I've had. The scars. I've learned to live with the scars because I have a beautiful one that goes from my armpit to my palm, all the way round, with a few other little dots because I've had some other ops. But also I've got two on my leg, where they took the donor areas because this is now my leg. They're the physical scars. It took about 4 years to heal. But I live with a scar up here. Because it will never leave me. Somebody turned around once and said, "Time's a beautiful healer." Yeah, whatever. You get used to it over time, but it doesn't heal. I felt like this guy for a long, long time because I am a freak. To me, I thought I was a freak. And for that feeling, I lost 2 marriages. Because to me, I was a freak. And the only way I could deal with the issues was to take my dogs over the marshes where I lived and talk to them. I couldn't talk to my family. Frustration. You learn to deal with the frustrations of life. And I'm looking for a volunteer. Would you like to come and join me on stage? Do it properly, use the steps. Don't forget we've got Mr. HSC in. Cheers, I'm good. Would you like to take a chair? Because I don't want you to feel uneasy. What I would like you to do is undo your shoelaces. Do you reckon you're up for a challenge? 20 dirhams? Right. Normally what I do is I get you all to join in and do your handwriting in your opposite hands, but I thought this would be a good little session for the afternoon. So I didn't catch your name. Sean. Right, Sean. I now want you to do your shoelaces up one-handed. Now, no, I'm going to set you a little goal because I've seen this on YouTube. It can be done in 29 seconds. Still up for that challenge? We'll double it if you like. Double and quits? Sean, have a go one-handed. Huh? You can do whatever you like, but as long as it's only one hand. So put your other hand on your lap so there's no cheating. Anybody counting? Nice use of the foot there. Did you see this? He's adapting already. He's already evolving. He's tempted to use his other hand. Sean, thank you for joining in. You can now do it properly. I'd hate to see a man struggle. Frustration. Lovely. Thank you, my friend. Give him a round of applause. It's the little things in life that have the biggest effects. By the way, Sean, do you want a tip? Slip-ons. That's my solution. It's the little things that have the biggest impacts. I remember my first proper meal in hospital. It was on a Thursday night, and the auxiliary nurse came over with me, over to me, and she came in a tray, and of course they put a silver thing over the top, so you never know what you're going to get. It's almost a surprise. Anyway, she lifted it off, and it was pizza. I'm not talking about them nice Domino's Pizza Hut pizzas. I'm talking about the cardboard ones. And I'm thinking, oh, great. And I looked at her, and she looked at me. I looked at the picture again and looked at her with them little puppy eyes of, I'm going to need some help. And she gave me that stern look, that stern motherly look of, tough, you're going to have to get on with it. And I sat there a little bit longer, and I started to move my focus to the knife and fork. How am I going to do this? In the end, I just picked up the fork and I started to cut it with my fork. It's the little things that have the biggest effects. I write right-handed now, and my mum, bless her, she always tells me I write better now right-handed than I do left-handed. And I always joke with Mum, I suffer from something called retroamnesia. I can't remember being left-handed. So now, Mother being Mother, she found a picture of when I was small with a colouring book with me being left-handed. And she put it at pride of place on her mantelpiece. And I go round there quite often and I say, Mum, it still doesn't trigger anything. But Mother's mum, she thinks that one day it will trigger me to remember being left-handed. It's the little things. I've confronted the demons. I've had to. because I learned that I couldn't keep going over the marsh talking to my little dogs, talking to them, hoping that they had the answer. In the end, I had to see someone who sat in a lovely chair just like this. She lived in a lovely big country house. And she used to sit there with a notepad, and she used to say, "And how do you feel today?" "I don't know. I honestly don't know." And then someone brought me in to talk about my experience, and now I'm quite a lucky person because I've got 450 people being my counsellor today. So thank you, because I've learned that I've got to talk about it. Don't bottle it up. Talk about it. Get it off your chest. Be brave. Talk about it. Don't do what I did and become a coward and try and cower away. Because you know what? It screws you up for life. So please, if there's something on your mind, talk about it. That is a brave thing to do. The ripple effect. What I would like you to do is close your eyes for 10 seconds, because you'll deserve a bit of a power nap because you've got no break this afternoon. So use it wisely now. Close your eyes just for 10 seconds and think of your loved ones, whoever they are, wherever they are. But just close your eyes just for 10 seconds and think of your loved ones. I will know when 10 seconds is up because normally someone starts snoring. I think that's 10 seconds, so thank you for joining in. On average in the UK, 44 people are affected, and they normally end up in one of these 4 groups. First group is the family. They are hit with the tsunami. My family had a 3-hour round trip every day for a month to come and see me. Then the next group is friends. You find out who your real friends are. I had one friend in particular who would talk literally to my arm. Wouldn't look at me, but would look at my arm. And I'm sure he was expecting my arm to talk to him back. The third group is work. Morale hits an all-time low, and it takes a very long time to get it back again. You have lovely people from the HSC come in, and they don't interview you, they interrogate you, don't they, Kev? But what I understand is people was interviewed. And thirdly, what I understand was where I lost, or should I say where I spilt 4 pints of blood, it had to stay there for a certain amount of time until the HSC was happy that it was customer practice of what we was doing. So there was a physical reminder for a couple of days. And then finally, the 4th group is the emergency services. Yes, you can argue they are trained to deal with anything. But I'm going to argue they don't want to do it. I had one policeman in particular who had to raid the local supermarket to get the ice to preserve my arm. And this is where Eleanor Roosevelt comes in. She talked about in the 30s, you don't know how strong you are until you are dipped in hot water. At the moment, you are all nice, dry tea bags, and I want you to all stay dry tea bags because you don't know how strong you are until you are dipped in hot water. So remember, stay a tea bag, a nice dry tea bag, because you might be the manager, like my manager, who had to phone my mum up. Not my Nick at the time, but my mum. My mum had to take the phone call. And Mum said Graham was a nervous wreck because he didn't know how Mum was going to cope. Whether Mum was going to scream, not say a word, or like what she said, live 10 minutes up the road from Nick, give me that time and I'll go and break the news to her. So please, don't become the one who has to phone someone's family up. This is Cheryl, my good lady now, and she is in foggy England at the moment, so I'm having a whale of a time in the sun. But we will see each other Wednesday and she will give me a big kiss and a cuddle and I will do the same, and I'm sure she'll say, "Where's my perfume?" And I'll say, "Oops, I forgot." But you all do this. You all have a kiss and a cuddle off your families. And it hurts me to think that actually Nick and Georgia that day nearly missed that last love you, that last goodbye that day. Bless them, they was asleep at 6 o'clock in the morning before I set off. Actually, ladies, you snore worse than us men. But don't tell anybody. But they knew I would be home at 7:30 Saturday night because I had a 12-hour shift. Nick knew that I'd come in with a takeaway because most families up and down the country have takeaway on a Saturday. And Nicola knew as soon as I'd walk through the door, it would be a big cuddle and it would be putting her to bed because she knew that if I was home in the evenings, it would be bedtime, story time. So please, don't just work for yourself and each other and for your guys and girls at their places of work. You need to make sure that everybody works safe for your families because they deserve it as much as what we all do. I'm going to leave you with a story. So if you remember your story time, I hope you're sitting comfortably and I will begin. And this story involves a little boy, thousands of starfish, and his granddad. This little boy, one morning, rushes down to the beach. There was a huge storm the night before. So he rushed down to the beach because he knew there would be something washed up. He loved beach combing. Anyway, he gets down there and he sees thousands of starfish. So like little boys do, starts picking them up and throwing them back. Anyway, he's been doing this for about a quarter of an hour, and all of a sudden he gets a little tap on the shoulder. He spins round. And he looks up and it's his granddad. And his granddad's looking at him a bit confused, like, "What the hell are you doing, son?" So the little boy turns round and says, "Well, Granddad, that storm last night washed up all these starfish and I'm throwing them back. Do you know what? It's great fun because every now and again I find a nice big fat one and I've learnt I can skim them. But son, you're not going to make a difference to all of these." "You're probably right, Grandad, but come on, let's have a walk because we're going to make a difference to that one. We're going to make a difference to that one, and we're going to make a difference to that one." So if a little boy can make a difference to some starfish, I hope I've inspired you to make a difference for yourselves, your employees, and all their families, and your families. Because now is the time to do it. I can't turn back 15 years. Nor can my friends, my family, and the guys that I work with. We can't turn back time. What's happened has happened. Luckily, we're all still breathing. But you have the time in your hands to make the difference. So please, use it wisely. Because I'd hate to read in the news that the oil industry is broken because you've had another disaster. And with that, I rest my case. Thank you for listening. It's been a pleasure.
Paul, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I think it certainly touched home to just everybody here, and again, how easy something so tragic could actually happen, and brings it all back to us, as you say, the complacency that sometimes exists in the industry, and again, what we don't notice. Anybody have a question for Paul? We can keep him here for just a minute or two. And perhaps one of the questions, that I might ask you to, in terms of that complacency at the time, I mean, it was obviously a situation within the company that you did what you did because there was a feeling, not so much of comfort, but you just got on with the job. Do you think, I'm sure it changed within that company very, very quickly, but do you think that it's changing quick enough in other companies? And do you think that the health and safety issues are really being addressed?
I can talk from my industry. We have a thing called PABIAC, and all the paper mills, recyclers, and everybody else involved in the paper industry now sit round the table and thrash things out. So all the competitive edge and everything else is put to one side. And they talk, and they all get together, and they thrash some good ideas out. And what I understand from my time at 2000, there was about 600 majors a year, injuries, and a few fatalities. I'm talking about a couple of handfuls. That's now come right down because they're willing to talk to each other. It's about talking. It's about communicating.
In some industries, and you look at, I think maybe some of the Japanese processes in some manufacturing industries for double checking and peer checking in terms of making sure that everything is safe. Do you think that extra step, even though it probably doesn't take that much time, of double checking and filling those processes in would prevent situations like that?
Yes. Simple answer is yes. I think the way to look at it is, do you want to lose half hour investigating a blockage or pump failure, or do you want however long it takes to do an investigation? The choice is yours. Do you want that half-hour downtime that, okay, may cost you some money? Or do you want to shut down for a few days while the investigation, or if not longer, takes place? The choice is yours. As I say, it's in your hands. Me personally, I think I'd rather waste half hour than have investigation left, right and centre. So yeah, learn from the Japanese. But you could learn from yourselves anyway. Have that fresh-eyed approach.
Has industry taken a more collaborative approach in terms of now bringing in people on the work floor? And I see it at many of the oil companies here that I would go into. There are notices up that saying, if you observe, any issues that are going on here, like stop work reported, and even many of the CEOs have actually said, you come straight to us and our door is open when something is, untoward. That surely is encouraging in the industry, but are you seeing that across various other industries, perhaps?
Yeah, I do notice it. It is having that open door. It is having that number on the wall that you can phone at any time. But it's about acting upon it as well. It's not just having it as a gimmick. It's about having it that you act upon. Because don't forget, it's about credibility. I know we talked about earlier about the credibility of your brand. What about the credibility of yourself? That's just as important as well. So if you are going to set these little schemes, initiatives up, you've got to live by them.
And again, with that credibility, also people on the shop floor taking that responsibility and not, assuming that it's somebody else's job, to encourage everybody to be more aware, to be more alert, and to actually raise the alarm as soon as they see it, even if it is not their role to do it.
Yeah, because safety isn't just for the HSC or your safety managers. Safety is about everybody, even your health. If there's something wrong with you and you've got to go and see a doctor, you don't ask somebody to book the doctor's appointment, do you? You make the appointment yourself. It is instilling that personal accountability, that personal responsibility. I'm going to do it for all of us, not just me or somebody else. It's about doing it for all of us.
Super. Thanks once again.
No.
We really, really appreciate
No,
you sharing
thank you.
that, and thank you so much. Paul Mahoney, ladies and gentlemen, thank you.